It can't.
You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
To the Capitalist Corner, folks. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my two co-hosts, Mr. Michael Liebowitz, who is also the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, and Ziggy, who has decided to start biting me just as the show started. Michael is also helming this amazing channel called The Rational Alternative, where he's got many and sundry guests. I mean, he's really, really working hard to make this channel something special. Michael, tell us what is going on while I try to deal with this insane dog.
Yes. Well, right now, newly released yesterday, a debate I had with Professor Matthew McManus. He had written in Mark's favorite magazine, Jacobin, that a socialist society would likely be more ethical than a capitalist society. So I wrote to him and asked him if he would defend that proposition in the debate. He said yes. So we had the debate. That is now up. Today, I have to go a little early because I'm interviewing Nikos Soterakopoulos at 1 o'clock. Wednesday, I've got another debate that I did with a physicist where we debated free will. We've still got the episode of doing True Grit with Andy Bernstein in the works. And we love the super chats, super stickers. Megan and I are rocking on the weekends. All kinds of good stuff going on.
The original True Grit with John Wayne?
Yes.
Nice. Now, did you see the Coen Brothers one?
I have.
Did you like?
I did.
All right. Very good movie. I agree with you. Any other announcements, Michael, before we start the rest of the show today and deal with the headlines?
No. Can I tell my story?
Tell your story, please.
Okay. It's important because you're going to then read what I just sent you. Okay.
I couldn't access it. So you're going to have to
for
tell me.
FFS, you couldn't access it. You can access it.
Couldn't. The link didn't allow me to access it.
Oh boy. Dude, you are just something else with this. Every time there's some issue about something's not doing something. All right. So look, have you ever heard of Mystic, Connecticut? Let me ask you that first.
No.
You've never heard of Mystic, Connecticut?
No, I've heard of the Mystic River.
Have you heard of Mystic Pizza?
Yes.
Okay. So Mystic Pizza is in Mystic, Connecticut. Mystic, Connecticut is a historical town that people go to. They have an aquarium. They have a seaport there. So yesterday we had nothing to do. So Diana and I asked her mother to go to Mystic, Connecticut. They have Mystic Village, all little shops and stuff. So we go and we're walking around. So we get into
Did they film Mystic Pizza in Mystic, Connecticut?
It's based on it. I don't know if that's where they filmed it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Robert, I'll get to you in a minute. Thank you ever so much, but I want to tell this story. So we go, and there's this place called the Pepper Palace. And at the Pepper Palace, they sell various sauces, barbecue sauce, hot sauce, etc., etc. And they give you a free sample. You go in. So we go in, and I'm looking around the place, and I'm thinking, I'd like to try the hot stuff. So I tell the guy behind the counter, I said, hey, what's your hottest stuff? He said, well, I can't bring that out unless you're willing to try it. I said, oh, I'm going to try it. Bring it out. He said, okay, but you have to sign a waiver first.
Is it a ghost pepper thing?
Oh, I'm going to tell you in a second. So I said, well, yeah, I'll sign it. I'm thinking, this is just part of the shtick. You know what I mean? It's so hot. You got to sign a waiver first. So I sign the waiver, The guy gives me, I don't know, quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon. I take it, and it burns my mouth. But, I figured that was going to happen. I said, okay, yeah, it's a little hot, but whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay. So Diana asked me, you think I could handle it? I said, yeah, it's not that bad. You could handle it. So she does it. She takes it. Now my eyes start watering. That's the next phase of this. So I said, oh boy. So I go in, I get a napkin, I wipe my eyes, my nose is running. It's getting a little hot. I go out. All of a sudden, my entire stomach feels like it's on fire inside, just burning so bad. I felt so sick. Diana comes out. She says, I don't like this at all. Diana's face turns bright red, dripping sweat, looking like she's going to die, right? But I'm a no use to her. This stuff for me was like instant laxative. Right. So I take off to the
and I'm assuming you're feeling it there as well.
Yes, it's horrible, horrible, horrible. So I come out of the bathroom, I go back, and I just feel like I'm going to yak. Like, I feel so bad. I'm disoriented. Like, this is horrible, horrible feeling. So Diana's mother comes and she says, well, the people told me that if you take a shot of vinegar, it helps with this. I say, I don't want any vinegar. And then I said, wait, who told you this? Well, the guy in the vinegar store. And I said, oh, really? The guy from the vinegar store tells you vinegar works. So I looked it up, and what it tells you to do is you eat some ice cream.
Crackers. You got to eat,
Right. So I got crackers and ice cream, and I ate it, and I began to feel better. So I got home, and I looked up this stuff. It's called The End, Purgatory. It's an extreme hot sauce sold at the Pepper Palace retail store located in Old Mystic Village. It is advertised as the store's hottest product, clocking in at a massive 8 million Scoville heat units. It is made from a blend of Carolina Reaper, ghost pepper, and red habanero peppers, heavily reinforced with an intense 8 million Scoville natural pepper extract. If you decide to take a sample at their free tasting bar, a specific series of events and physical reactions take place. First, because the sauce is over 900 times hotter than a standard jalapeno pepper, employees will not give you a sample until you sign a liability waiver and disclaimer. The waiver essentially states you are trying it at your own risk and cannot sue the store for any adverse physical reactions. The sample is tiny, usually a drop. Employees administer the sample onto a small chip or tasting spoon, usually consisting of 1 to 3 tiny drops. Even a single drop is powerful enough to induce total Capsaicin chaos. There's a delayed
chaos.
Yes, there is a delayed reaction. When you first put it on your tongue, it may briefly taste fruity or smoky. For the first 5 to 10 seconds, it might not feel completely overwhelming. However, the heat quickly skyrockets and builds in intensity. Severe physical symptoms kick in. Once the sauce fully hits your system, you can expect severe, immediate side effects. Intense pain and burning. Your entire mouth, tongue, throat, and gums will feel like they are coated in molten lava. Respiratory and eye reactions. It causes immediate heavy sweating, a severely runny nose, uncontrollable tearing up, and mild shortness of breath. Sensory distortion. Many challengers report that their tongue goes entirely numb or their ears begin to ring from the sheer shock to the nervous system. If swallowed, the extreme concentration of capsaicin can cause intense stomach cramps and inability to speak normally, and occasionally causes participants to vomit. Now, this is what pisses me off. All of that I'm fine with. I signed the waiver. This next part is sticking in my craw a bit. If you successfully sample the sauce and survive the burning, you can participate in their Wall of Flame challenge. Staff will take a photo of your painful reaction to post on social media, making you eligible for monthly gift card prizes. That no one told me about that. Where's my gift card prizes? Where's my possibility? Where's my photo?
And all that suffering for nothing, Michael, unfortunately.
So, but look, and then I got home and I looked up vinegar, and it said vinegar would make it worse. So Diana took the vinegar.
Lord.
she was in rough shape. She couldn't even get the ice cream down. She didn't start feeling better until we were ready to go to bed. So Katie Ellis says, YOLO. That's exactly what I said. When they said, why do you want to do it? I said, hey, you only live once. And let me tell you something. Then Diana says to me on the ride home, would you do it again for $1,000? What? Run it right now. Especially now I know what to do. Let's go. Even if I couldn't take the ice cream, I'd do it. $1,000? Of course. But look, it's a great story to tell. I get to tell it here. I get to tell it to other people. I tried the hottest stuff that they had. Mind you, I go to the Mexican joint down the street and they have this habanero sauce. And when I ask for it, they look at me like I'm crazy. And I take that, no problem.
Yeah.
I go to the Thai restaurant. I tell them, heat it up. Give me the hot stuff. No problem. I'm not a wuss when it comes to hot food. All right. So now, Robert Naser with a wonderful $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Robert. He says, a belated happy birthday, Michael. Missed it. Haven't had time to listen live. Wrapping up the Audible Apple Books reading of Idolatry, Book 3, The Fruit of the Tree by Quent Cordair this week. Keep being awesome, guys. Robert, when that book is published and ready to go, when you're done, let me know. I'll share it to my social media. But thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you, Robert, for that. And well, Michael, so hopefully they'll bet you $1,000 and you'll do it again. Maybe take two this time instead of just one little teaspoon.
Okay. So anyways, and you just know I went in there and I had a tank top on. So, I got this guy thinks probably I'm some wannabe tough guy. I'm all tatted up. I go and give me the hottest stuff. He's probably laughing his ass off with all his pals today. All right. But now we've got some actual stories to get to.
We do indeed. We're going to talk about transgenderism in pro sports. So I guess, Michael, this former NBA player made a bit of a splash. And tell me if I'm pronouncing his name right, because I'm not so big into the NBA. But Enes Kanter Freedom, who is apparently sort of a right-wing guy who got into a little bit of trouble with the NBA towards the latter part of his career, right, protesting the CCP. As people might know, the CCP was a big sponsor of the NBA, and lots of NBA guys profit from China. And he had an issue with that, which I can sort of respect. But recently he came out and he hasn't played in quite a while, Michael. I think he retired a few years ago. But he recently came out and said that given the bylaws and requirements of the WNBA, he actually fits the requirements and was going to enter himself into the 2027 draft for the WNBA. Now, recently, of course, a few members of the WNBA have come out. Sophie Cunningham, most notably, coming out in protection of women's sports, trying to keep transgender athletes out of the WNBA, while the many other members are a little bit more skeptical and a little bit more sympathetic to the trans women entering the WNBA. And there has been a trans athlete in there before who had a 12-year long career, a woman who transitioned. Mike, what do you think of this insanity? Okay. I have my own feelings about it.
So first of all, the trans person that played in the NBA was a biological woman.
Biological woman.
That's the first thing, who transitioned to a man. Secondly, he says, according to their bylaws, their rules, he's gone over and he's eligible to play. That's bullshit.
Correct.
In their rule book, it has player eligibility, and the first thing is player must be a woman. But that's not enough. You better define woman. You're not defining what a woman is, because that's the new right-wing thing. You have to define it. Tell everybody what it is. And I've heard people say, look, he's got him now. He's proving a point. Okay, he's not. This to me, and I talked about this yesterday on my members only show, is an example of somebody making an argument that people that already agree with the point think is a Loctite argument, but really isn't. for an abundance of reasons. I mean, if we just deal with the trans stuff first, this guy isn't trans. He's not identifying as a woman. He hasn't undergone any procedures. He hasn't undergone hormone therapy. He didn't do puberty blockers. He's an adult man who's making a mockery, or it's silly. So he doesn't fit in with what would be the argument for a trans person anyway. Secondly, the league there's never been a guy that played in this league. Never, ever been one, right? So it's a non-issue. The rules say that it's only for women. But to me, Mark, and we'll get into this with, there's also this story of the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is a private organization. Everybody has an opinion on how the private organization should run their business. What I say, the private organization should run their business however the hell they want to, right? If they want to allow men to play women, men to pretend to be women, whatever thing, or women to pretending to be men. And I'm not talking about just trans people. I'm saying everybody, like whoever they want to allow to play and compete. That's on them. Then it's up to the people already in the league. Do they want to play under those circumstances? They can choose. And the consumer, the fan, gets to choose whether to watch. This is not an issue the government should be involved with. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? Because you don't like it, so who's going to step in?
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, you get both of these political tribes trying to assert their will over the public and make their perspective law. So yes, you get the left, who makes these arbitrary claims about what men and women are, based on their notion of the sex being a gender being a construct, a social construct, attempting to impose it on everybody else. And then you get the right at war with this concept, right, sticking straight to the biological facts and the chromosomes as they are, trying to also impose this on everybody else. It's really a private property issue.
Yes, this was not an issue,
right? It's only an issue to the left and the right, who are trying to dominate each other in the culture wars, and who consider the gotcha moments as victories, man, like they do with this guy. They're considering this a gotcha moment.
Yeah, they're all high-fiving each other.
Each other. Yeah. But what's really ironic about it, Michael, is that the right is trying to do the very same thing the left is doing. They're not just pointing out the irony and the conflicts of interest that this puts people in, and the paradoxes. They're actually trying to enforce their ideas of things on everybody else, when they should be the ones who call out private property as the way of solving this dispute.
Yeah. Now, so all that happened was a player, Sophie Cunningham, came out and said, I don't think that trans athletes men should be playing with women. And then a few players and coaches signaled or said outright that they disagreed with her. And then this guy comes out and says this. So for the record, let me just put this out there. I don't believe women can become men or men can become women. I don't think trans women are women. I do think that trans is a real phenomenon and a real thing. I don't think it's just some mental illness. Right. So I do think it's real. I do think that in general, men have an advantage over women when it comes to athletics.
Which is why you never see trans men going into the NFL or the NBA.
Well, they wouldn't be able to make it. Right.
Correct.
But I think that it's up to these the organizations do what they want. So, and this player, by the way, he claims that the NBA blackballed him, whatever. His last year in the league, he was averaging like 3 points a game.
Yeah, pretty tepid.
He had been good before that. But look, if you're averaging 3 points a game, you cannot afford to be a troublemaker. Right? If you're LeBron James, troublemaker. When you're this guy, it's no different than if you're a high quality carpenter. My first tattoo artist, he was like the best on the East Coast. That's what they used to say. He was phenomenal, and he was a wicked dick. He could afford to be a dick because he was good.
Yeah.
But if he's a little less quality, maybe people aren't putting up with his dickishness.
It's like that everywhere, Michael. If you got the talent, you got the ability, people are willing to put up with more. If you're
Yes.
not quite good, they're not going to put up with as much. It
Now-
depends on how much value you create.
And now there's another organization, the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is an organization that was found in 1890. Basically, these were women who are descendants of people who fought in the Revolutionary War, served at that time, that sort of thing. And it's for women. So, but evidently trans women have, entered into the equation. They've enlisted in this organization, and they voted, and I guess the vote went one way, but they're saying no, it didn't actually, whatever. And Republican senators are now getting in. They're weighing in on the situation. Again, it's a private organization. It's not their business. If this organization wants to call men women, women men, that's up to them. If you don't like it, don't belong to it. I don't watch basketball anyway, men or women. I mean, but it's up to them. When the NBA changes rules like they do all the time,
Mm-hmm.
then what are you going to do? You either like the rules or you don't. So Akira Felix says the whole CCP thing was more complicated. The same people who supported BLM riots said nothing about the Hong Kong protests. Yeah, I know all of that, Akira. I know what you're saying. I know that LeBron, who was upset when Laura Ingraham told him to shut up and dribble, then wanted athletes to shut up about China. I remember the story. My point is that LeBron James could have criticized China. Nothing would have happened to him. This guy is not LeBron James. If he was real good, he would have gotten away with it. I'm not saying that it had nothing to do with him not being picked up by a team, but I'm saying it's not the only factor, because if he was great, teams overlook it. Like they overlook, a lot of the wacky things that Kyrie Irving says, for instance.
Yeah, because those guys are talented. They put asses in the seats. They bring millions upon millions, perhaps even billions of dollars to the industry. So of course people are going to say, hey man, these guys create such value. They're a pain in the ass, but the good stuff outweighs the bad stuff. So
Right.
when the bad stuff outweighs the good stuff, you take a holiday.
Exactly. If Tom Brady took a knee during the flag, as Colin Kaepernick did, Tom Brady doesn't lose his job.
No.
Colin Kaepernick does, because he's not as good as Tom Brady. That's my point.
That's true. And Michael, when this becomes a private property issue, you get the left especially talking about democracy and being in love with the concept of democracy, but there's nothing more democratic than property rights, because you have complete and total say-so over your own property, and the people who partake, who trade with you, have complete and total say-so over the rules.
I don't like that you said that's democratic.
No, but you know what I'm saying. In other words, people equate democracy, or they equate democracy with power to the people. Like, you now have power over your life. It's not true in the political sense, but in this economic sense, you totally do, because you can choose to go to an organization that embodies the rules and regulations that you think are appropriate, or you can stay away from them. You give them their support by your money, by your engagement with them,
Yes.
or you don't. You're perfectly free. Free association, sacrosanct property rights, Michael. That's what solves this issue and makes it a non-issue. It's only an issue because the tribes are fighting over it and trying to dominate each other in the culture. And
Yes,
I'm bored.
I think it's dumb. I think this is an obvious stunt. It's just, I was listening to the radio the other day, and local right wing talk show host was, he's blasting, talking about it, and he and his wife, and they thought it was also all wonderful. Ah ha ha, he's showing him. He's not showing anybody. Yes, it's claptrap BS for you. It's like Kevin Sorbo the other day. He posted this idiotic thing that right wing nativists love to say. If you're for open borders, then don't lock your house or your car. And they think it's a great argument, but the two are not comparable. Not even close.
I hate that freaking argument, Michael.
It's so stupid.
You don't
No.
own the United States. You don't own the state of Texas. You
No.
own your own property, man.
Right. It's a totally, by that logic, okay, well, then we should have borders for towns, close the borders from town to town, from state to state. I mean, it's just so freaking dumb when they make statements like that. But, you know, he got a lot of likes, and Kevin Sorbo and everyone's cheering. Yeah. And they think it's great. Yeah. He owned them, but it's all BS. Well, by the way, folks, if you were joining us from X, this is the Capitalist Corner. We are on every weekday, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 Pacific, where we talk about the issues of the day from a pro-reason, pro-capitalist perspective. The channel is the Rational Alternative, and on this channel we have the Michael Liebowitz Show, where I do interviews and debates. We have a show where we discuss science, the Rational Alternative Weekend, Saturdays at noon Eastern Time. We also have members only content that I do every Sunday. So if you go subscribe to this channel, you are going to be happy.
Lord have mercy. So Michael, we're still dealing with the Straits of Hormuz.
I'm still not feeling well.
I don't blame you, Michael. You had a very hot pepper, and it's going to fuck up your metabolism like mad. And this dog is driving me crazy. He's actually eating.
Oh my God,
Tracy's
dude!
books.
You're letting this dog beat you. The dog is winning this battle
Because he's taking advantage of the fact that I'm stuck in the seat, and he's going and he's grabbing shit, and he's just.
By the way,
running
folks, I apologize, folks, but there will be no show tomorrow. I'm going to New York for my monthly to witness the monthly Soho Forum debate. Thank you, Thomas Hag, for the debate. I would love for your comments on my debate with Matt McManus. I would love anybody else that wants to give feedback on that. Okay,
Michael,
to us about
talk a little bit about Iran. While I saved the day with this guy for a second.
Okay, since you pointed, I will. So the Trumpster evidently is now saying that he's low-key negotiating with the Iranians. The Iranians say they're not. Trump says that we're hurting them so bad economically, we really don't need to use military force right now, which of course is garbage argument. The Iranians, meanwhile, say that the Strait of Hormuz will not be open until the United States meets their demands. They are the one making the big demands now. They want the United States has to stop threatening them, has to stop threatening and challenging their allies in Lebanon, Iraq, and I believe even Syria. So basically, it's par for the course. You know, J.D. Vance said something to the effect of, you know, this is only halfway through. Really? Because Marco Rubio said it was over a couple months ago, and we've won this thing 100 times now. So I don't know. I mean, it's mixed messaging. It's bad all around. And then, you know, Iran is separately negotiating with Oman to do something with the Straits of Hormuz. And Benjamin Netanyahu has now said he's not accepting Trump's plan in relation to the Gaza peace board.
Michael, imagine the hubris of negotiating foreign policy for someone else. It's not even like he's negotiating policy for the United States. He's negotiating policy for Israel. And people are claiming that Israel is pulling the strings, that America is just a puppet of Israel, and that we got into this war because of Israel. We have been holding Israel back from actually doing what it could have done to Iran in the 12-day war. Which was help us considerably in the current conflict. And now we have the audacity of telling them that they have to get the IDF out of Gaza before Hamas disarms.
I think we're gonna argue now. Thank you, Robert Naser, for the $2, and yes, everybody, Wang Chung. So I do think that it's ridiculous, a bit ridiculous, that the United States doesn't want Israel to do what it needs to do to defend itself. At the same time, I mean, if you're Israel and you're so reliant on United States aid, that ought to come, I think, with some influence from us. So, not from us, you know what I mean, from our government. I don't know what the best answer to this is, but I do know that if you're paying these people, you're funding them, you're providing them with military aid, it's not unreasonable then to want them to listen to you in these situations. So for the Israel, you know, the hardcore Israel supporters to say then, Trump shouldn't be stopping them. Well, I mean, then say that Trump shouldn't be aiding them either.
It's not even about listening to them, Michael. It's about actually forming the foreign policy for Israel. That's a different thing. I understand that since we supply them with certain materials, which they also reciprocate by supplying us with materials, by the way. They make technological...
The two are not equal. It's not equal.
Well, it's not unequal. It certainly doesn't put America in the place where they are, where it doesn't position America or Trump to negotiate for Israel as a proxy for Israel.
Well, how come
they can make suggestions, but they...
Why do we have the things... Yeah, well, why do so many people go... They go to the United States. They want the United States to solve their problems. They come here. Ehud Barak is negotiating in Washington with Arafat. Before that, I'm not positive. Yeah, Jimmy Carter with... Menachem Begin and
Jimmy Carter with North Korea. Yeah, they have a lot of people going over to negotiate, but oftentimes putting the cart before the horse with the administration itself. But that's not what's happening here.
Listen,
what's happening here is Trump is negotiating in lieu.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Trump's policy is bad. What I'm saying is, I would be a lot more sympathetic with Netanyahu's position if he didn't belly up to the trough for American help, if he didn't come to America and give speeches about how America should be at war with Iraq or war with Iran, whatever, if he wasn't seeking America's help, if he didn't do that, I'd be far more sympathetic. That's
I think the relationship is far more reciprocal than you're giving it credit for, but I think this is precisely what the Israeli government is recognizing, and that's why they're trying to make their defense industry local, and they're not trying to outsource anything anymore to the United States government. And
hold on, far more reciprocal, right?
Far more reciprocal in that, for example, if we give Israel fighter planes, for example, if they purchase the fighter planes from us, they also integrate new technology into those fighter planes that makes them better, just like they integrate new technology into everything that we've given them to make them better. So in effect, they reinvent technology and make it better for our defensive purposes. Now look, I'm not saying it's entirely reciprocal, but Israel recognizes the very thing that we're talking about, and I think they don't want to be a party to being second in line negotiating their own welfare.
Okay. So
keep talking.
Here's why I say it's not equal. And I know Israel does provide some benefits to the United States, but the United States largely, foreign aid is not good in my view, Akira. After 1967 is when we really started funding the Israelis. Whose existence do you think is more likely to be imperiled had we not been in this relationship with Israel since 1967? Israel
is the one who's surrounded by
exactly. So if Israel needs us for their survival, and we're going to be giving them money and weapons, then I don't think it's unreasonable that the United States has say over there. Now, that said, I'm not saying that Trump is good or he did the right thing or anything like that. All I'm saying is that complaints don't register as strongly with me when you're accepting money and weapons. Now, Jim says military aid is different, and it's different in the sense that it's military and not cash to the people.
Well, the cash goes to the military. The military then spends it in the United States.
Right. That's fine. That's not a big win for me that you're taking that. I mean, we could say that over here. The government takes some people's money, gives it to other citizens. Those citizens spend the money here. I'm against the whole corrupt apparatus, including the military aid. Thomas Hag says sharing military is a very special kind of aid. I don't know. I think it's very, very, very arguable that the United States is safer because we've had Israel for an ally for the last, since 1967. Before that, we weren't, and we were friends, but I'm saying we've really been they benefit much more from this relationship than the United States does. But in the end, I'm opposed to military aid. I'm opposed to all of it because at the end of the day, I'm opposed to the means of funding it, which is coercion and compulsion against American citizens.
I mean, I agree. I am not for foreign aid. I'm not for subsidizing anyone from government funds because that means they're taking it from innocent people who don't necessarily agree with the way the funding is being used, and they're redistributing it against their will. I don't like that kind of coercion. That said, the fact that it exists with multiple countries, Israel to me is way, 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 way down the list of bad actors or any of the other countries that we fund or subsidize their militaries. I think Israel is one of the better ones if it's going to be done at all. But we can disagree. We can disagree.
No, what do you mean? I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying stop it all, not just stop it to Israel.
As do I. And I think, Michael, in a capitalist society, one in which the American Capitalist Party had some say in the matter, this kind of aid would be non-existent.
We've got an interesting comment here. Let's put this up here.
Go ahead. I have to rescue the dog.
Thomas Hag says, are taxes wrong? No, they are not. I disagree. Because, Thomas, you say the initiation of force is wrong. Taxes are the initiation of force. It doesn't matter if they fund valid functions, Jim. It's irrelevant. That's completely irrelevant. Here, I'm going to steal your money, but I'm going to spend it on good stuff. That's not a good. That's definitely not a winning argument. That once you steal your stuff, once you steal it, as long as you do something good with it, it's okay. No, it's not. I did read it. Rand did not agree with you. Rand actually said that technically the word isn't taxes. Technically, the word is what was it? I forget. Funding. So Jim says abolish the police. Okay, well, that's a non sequitur. You're talking about the people that immediately protect the United States citizens, as opposed to giving military stuff to a foreign country on another continent that largely goes toward defending themselves.
I can't think of another country that we give military aid to, though, that reciprocates in with quite the depth that Israel does, not only in recreating technology and making the stuff that we send them better, but in also crucial intelligence. I mean, if our main enemy today, aside from China on the geopolitical stage, is also Islamicism, then there's no other country on the face of the earth that has better intelligence and embedded intelligence within some of these horrible terrorist organizations than Israel does, and they provide that to us if we want it.
I love Jim Valiant. I do. But Jim Valiant is the king of the strongman argument when it comes to me.
Strongman?
Strawman. Straw man. Because, of course, when you say national defense is a valid function, yes. Does that mean that the United States government ought to be using force against people in order to fund it? No, they should not. Does that mean that we should end it right this second? No, we should not. But then you're going to have to prove to me that the United States of America is objectively better off for funding Israel. And that's being that degree of better off means that Israel gets to bitch when the United States does things or tells them what to do over there.
Look, Michael,
that's the argument.
I do agree that if you're getting subsidized, the person with the money has the power. And you have no right to put conditions on it because the person's giving you the money has the right to put the conditions on it, for sure. But this isn't just what's happening. Trump is negotiating for Israel. It's not that he's suggesting things.
I get that.
He's actually trying to negotiate in the back door with Hamas, who, it's Israel that's immediately threatened by the fact that there are 30 to 40,000 Hamas fighters.
And you know how much more they'd be threatened had we been not aiding them all these years?
Well, I don't know. We can't say that because
I think we can.
Quantity. I don't think we can.
I think we can. We
didn't aid them. We didn't really aid them before 67 when they defeated all of the combined Arab armies.
That's true. I'm not, and I'm not stating it categorically, obviously. I'm saying we can speculate and we can make a strong case that they would be far worse off if not for our help.
Michael, in 47, it was basically a group of ragtag militia and a couple of biplanes that defeated the combined Arab armies in 47 and 48. They had help from, I think, from France maybe, or from the Czechoslovakia or something, but it was, they cobbled together a force.
They did.
And it's been largely their own capacity to develop forms of warfare that are unique and to increase the viability of all the technology that they have and use it to the best of their
You're talking about a time before the Islamic Revolution in Iran. You're talking about a time before Al-Qaeda, before ISIS. I mean,
not before the Muslim Brotherhood, not before Islamic,
but long before
Arab
the strong,
nationalism.
but long before the strong organization. The problem I have with these discussions is, I don't know how you have a discussion about what's right and wrong when it reminds me, Mark, of when somebody says, oh, you want to have basically open borders, but we have a welfare state. So we can't advocate for the right principle on open borders because we have the welfare state. We can't argue that taxation is ultimately theft. Well, because we have to have the police. We need to be able to do these things simultaneously. And it's why when we make the arguments, we ultimately have to order them. What goes first? And on my list of things that could go first, as far as what the government spends, foreign aid is very, very near the top of things that can go first. That, the war on drugs, that sort of thing. Not to mention, what we're going to talk about soon, education. I hate the government involvement in education. But if you give me a choice on what to get the government out of first, foreign aid comes first before education.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about military spending. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about military spending. I'm talking about all the aid that we give all over the world, not just to Israel.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I'm stopping that long before I stop the education.
Yeah.
And I want to get rid of the public education.
And I would think more often than not that aid, which is in the form of energy, food, some technology, Michael, I would imagine that often that aid goes to prolong bad acting regimes in their regime control of that region, since they seem to be the ones that control the resources and the people suffer. So I think it incentivizes bad behavior, and it keeps the establishments in power. I remember reading about how in this book recently called Dancing with the Devil, Michael, how the North Koreans were stringing America along with respect to their nuclear program, and all the time getting concessions out of them. And when they were in a starving period, they were advertising to their people that they had a bumper crop of wheat, but what they were really getting was wheat supplied from the United States, which kept the regime in power.
Okay, so we have Thomas Hag says aid is not Aid is not a naughty thing by definition. No, compulsory aid is, though. And
that's what we're talking about. We're talking
that's
about
what we're talking
shit
about
from people and giving it to other people.
Here's the problem. So Ian Gilmore says that he'd do education before foreign aid. It's much smaller and much less impactful. I disagree wholeheartedly. That would be less impactful. You've got so many kids right now that are in the public education system that are there and that cannot afford education right now. If you just abolished public education, you would kick so many kids out of school. The long-term impacts of that are unknowable, but it would not be good. So the wonderful Megan Ribbon says you need to fix the education system first, and then you can fix the foreign aid. You stop public education right now. You have you can't
stop it immediately, because look, the public education system as it is now is basically formed 40 years ago, and it's now got an entrenched constituency of very dependent folks on it. And so you'd have to wean them off of it slowly over probably a 5 or 10 year period. But the ideal would be to eliminate the Department of Education. It has no place in the federal government.
Thomas Hag says I'm sniping at him. I didn't think I was sniping at you. I'm rapidly scrolling through comments and listening to Mark and paying attention to the clock. I'm not trying to snipe at you. I'm addressing what you said. You say here the terminology shouldn't be placed above matter. I agree, but above you said is taxation wrong, and then you said no, and I'm saying yes, it is. That's the main thing. I don't think terminology should be placed above anything, but we have to speak in terms of words, and the words represent concepts that refer to reality. And the concept of taxation includes force. The concept of foreign aid includes force. There's no way I can get around that. But I'm not sniping at you, buddy.
Including public schools, Michael. I mean, California has the highest property taxes in the country, among the highest property taxes in the country. And those property taxes are supposed to go for subsidizing the public schools. I pay those taxes, yet I don't have anybody in the public schools. I don't have any kids in the public schools right now. So I'm subsidizing somebody else's education. And to me, to some folks, that may sound beneficent. It's not beneficent. If I chose to do it, it would be a benevolent act on my part. The fact that it's taken from me, presumptively taken from me, so that I now can't pursue the values that I think are appropriate for my life, that makes it bad, man. It's taking moral agency away from me.
This now is going to bother me.
For something I said?
No. Because the guy is accusing me of taking him out of context and quoting him. I love disagreement. I thrive on it. But you're basically there accusing me of some type of moral failure, right? Let's back up. Yes, Thomas Hag. First of all, I can only go by what you say, right? So I'm going to go back to the beginning. The terminology complicates it all. This is your statement related to this, i.e., are taxes wrong? No, they are not. But initiation of force, thus violating individual rights, is. Okay, that's your first quote. How am I taking you out of context to point out that it's a contradiction? Taxation is, by definition, the initiation of force. You say there taxes aren't wrong, but initiation of force is. That's a contradiction. I'm not taking you out of context, sir. I'm taking you precisely based on what you said. Okay. Now, let's scroll down a little bit. He said, read the comment again. Okay, I just did. Next thing you said is Rand agreed with me. Why? She didn't. What she actually said was taxation should be the abolition should be the last thing that we advocate for. What she said was we need voluntary funding. She did use the word taxation, you're right, but then she clarified and said it's not really taxation because taxation involves the initiation of force. This is I believe the essay is Government Financing in a Free Society. So then he says taxes in the sense of a fee. So here you clarify what you earlier said after you said I was misunderstanding your quote. But taxes in the sense of a fee, if it's just a fee for service that's voluntary, then it's not taxation. I'm not taking you out of context anywhere, sir, yet. Now you say in a fully free society, taxation, or to be exact, payment for government services would be voluntary. Yes, she's contradicting your point there because she's clarifying that it's not actually taxation that she's talking about. She's talking about voluntary funding. And now he says, I mean this only. Okay, then we're in agreement. Once you get here, you and I agree. I cannot know that when you put your first post up there, Thomas. I only know what's there, what's in front of me. I cannot read your mind and get into what you're saying down the line. So now, Thomas, your next quote is, repeating myself, my point was that terminology should not be placed above matter. I never said it should. I'm referring specifically using words applied to their reference in reality. The word taxation means compulsory taking of somebody else's money. So now Thomas says, of course, Michael, but aid is not a naughty thing by definition, and using it does not say what is wrong. The context in which we're discussing foreign aid is the context in which it is the money is taken compulsorily from people. That's what we're talking about. That's what makes it wrong. Not the fact that one person voluntarily aids another, but nobody on this panel, especially not me, ever said that. Okay, scroll down a little bit. Let's see what he says next. Well, yes, Michael, that's what I said. You don't need to snipe at me. I'm not sniping at you. I'm disagreeing with you. That's all. Then you accuse me of out of context quotes as repudiation and tell me it doesn't work. I've just gone through your list of quotes. I challenge you or anybody in the chat or anybody listening to tell me how I took a single quote of yours out of context. If you're going to make an accusation against me, because that's what that is, I'm going to respond. Now you say next, right now you can beat the nail or you can bring up what I said about fees and why it mattered to the context. Aid for selfish protection was the topic. No, that's not the topic. That's not the topic. The topic is foreign aid as it actually is, not foreign aid as it could exist in a different society. If taxation were purely voluntary, foreign aid would be fine because I'd be free to not give my money if they were taking it and giving it to another country. Okay, now you said read back. I already did. Now you say right now I'm defined what I meant by the term. I'm not speaking of compulsory taxation. I said fees. Yes, Thomas, we now know that. But in your initial post, I could not know that. And that's what I was responding to. I cannot know that you're going to clarify downstream in a comment section what you mean. I can only go by what you say. Once you tell me, no, I don't mean really taxation. What I mean is fees. Okay, then we're in agreement. But when you first said what you said, I was in no position to know that. And no, sir, you're not being defined by this. This is one chat, one comment, one disagreement. It doesn't encompass all of who you are. I can read her in multiple places, Thomas. Yes, and I promise you that she differentiates between taxation and voluntary funding. Okay.
Are we out of the argument now?
We're gonna have to be because I have to go.
Oh yeah, you have to go. So we're gonna skip the labor market.
No, we are, but I do want to say that there's a good article and it's about getting the federal government out of public education. And the argument is about the constitutionality of the federal government. And while I agree that constitutionally the federal government ought not be involved in education, when it comes to at the state level, there's nothing that constitutionally precludes states from financing education. I still don't want states financing education. Absolutely.
That was a flaw that I found in the argument as well.
Right. What I want is ultimately a plan. Right. I want a plan to stop foreign aid. I want a plan to privatize education. I want a plan that gets us to voluntary fees for governmental services. But we don't just get there from here to here, right? My point in regard to the foreign aid is, in my view, foreign aid is a good place to start. Why do I say it's a good place to start? Because I think that we can handle our own self-defense largely, right? We could still enter into mutual defense pacts with other countries if we want to. That doesn't mean we have to send them money or send them weapons. And given that we can handle our defense on our own, I think that that's a good place to start, because I don't think that the money that you're taking is directly benefiting the people from whom you're taking it. Whereas in the case of the police, the military, public schools, I think if you take
there are
that all
yeah, there are constituents here
the
who
constituents are going to be harmed outright. Yes.
I agree with that's a very coherent point, Michael. So
I can be very coherent at times.
Did you want to read the answers to the question? Did we have a question on Friday?
So Jim Valiant has a what's the word I'm going to look for here? Idiosyncratic interpretation of the First Amendment, where he would argue that the First Amendment doesn't allow state funding of education. But Jim's wrong about that.
So did you want to give us the answers to Friday's question, Michael?
I do, but I feel bad. Thomas Hag, dude, I promise you, there's no hard feelings. I'm perfectly okay. I like you. I want you to keep commenting. It's fine. Please keep disagreeing. Akira says he doesn't disagree. He won't disagree with me. I don't know why, and I'm pretty sure he has. He has even in this episode. He disagreed. So that's that. So let's go and let's find these. I got to go pretty soon because I got to talk to the wonderful Nikos Soterakopoulos.
Nikos Soterakopoulos.
Man, that guy is awesome.
He's great. American through and through, even though he lives in Greece and was born in Greece.
We are up to 961 subscribers. Thank you, Katie. All right.
And share it across. Do you want me to give the capitalist thought of the day while you're looking for that?
No, I got it now. The animated philosophy to answer the early question. That's what I want. And strategy. Practical, out of the theoretical. That's what he wants. This other guy's an idiot. This other guy here says American Capitalist Party. We already have 2. It's interesting because it says 15 comments, but they're only showing me 3 or 4 of them. Oh, no. Thomas Hag gets into an argument with this other guy. That's all. So there was no real strong answers. I don't even remember what the question is. So, do the capitalist thought of the day, and it's your turn to ask the question.
So, folks, today we've talked about a few things that are disturbing only because they don't acknowledge a fundamental principle of a free society, and that is the inviolability of property. If you privately own something, then you have the right to make the rules with respect to that something. And you're not violating somebody's rights by making those rules. They are free to solicit your organization or not, and because of that, you are not violating their rights. In a free society, these wars that we're having within the culture about transgenderism and whether or not transgender folks should be allowed in women's spaces would be answered by the private values of the people who own the organizations, and there would be no rights violations as there are now, as each side attempts to dominate the culture and then impose their will on you legally. That is anti-capitalist. A capitalist society is about full respect for your sovereignty, which can only happen when you have inviolable rights to your property and the disposal of your property, where you make the rules to your own castle. So we strive for that kind of society, folks, because we see it as a much more benevolent society. What you see now is conflict as each side tries to gain dominance over this particular area of the culture. What you wouldn't see is that very same conflict, because it would be resolved privately through private property. And that's a capitalist society. So I have a question. Did you guys see what was the name of the Spielberg movie that just came out? What was it called? God damn it.
Andy Bernstein told me I should go see it and then told me how he didn't like it. And I'm like, why are you recommending a movie to me that you didn't like?
What is it? Yeah, Disclosure Day. Thank you. Disclosure Day. Did you see it? Did you like it? And if you did, why? I saw it. About the first quarter of it was way too much exposition, unfortunately, but it set up the ground for everything that came later. From the time Emily Blunt came on, the movie screamed. She was amazing. And I do have issues with the philosophy of the movie. We could talk about that at some point. That's probably what Andrew Bernstein had an issue with. But did you like it? If so, why? If not, why? And you can answer that. We're not going to answer it tomorrow because Michael's going to be in New York at the Soho Forum. That I probably should have gotten my teeth done tomorrow because I didn't know you were going to do that. So I had an appointment and then I canceled it because I thought we were going to be doing the show. But we will be back here Wednesday, folks. So you got like 47 hours or so to sort out your premises, to check them and do the right thing. It's what all smart people do, right? Right, Michael? So do that, please, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Peace.